Hey guys, Paul Michael Kane here with another PMK photo tip and or trick. Today we're going to be talking about a concept I refer to as pre-visualization. The ability to see a shot finished in your head as you're creating the image itself. For this particular shot, this is a series of 9 images that I bracket, exposing for the brightest brights to the darkest darks, and then merging all those images into one usable finished piece. So let's take a look at what I'm talking about and let's have some fun. Okay, so let's get into the fun part. We're going to create an image out of these 9 bracketed exposures. What I've done here is I've exposed for the darkest darks to the brightest brights. And we're going to use all 9 of these to create a super powerful, super texture, hyper saturated image. It's going to be a really cool image. And we're able to do this because I was pre-visualizing how this image was going to look at the end of my processing. But I need to get everything right in camera. So I'm exposing 9 times, same shot, on a tripod, so there's no movement whatsoever. Let's get into the merging part. I'm going to select all these images inside of Lightroom. I'm going to right click, go to Photo Merge, and click on HDR. That's also a keyboard shortcut, H. Now, depending on your processor, this may take some time. It is 9 images at 12 megapixels each, so it's a pretty substantial file size. All right. So here we have the dialog box, and it shows the preview of the merged image. Now, it doesn't look like much yet, but this is that pre-visualization, knowing where you can take this image during the creation. All right, let's go over some of these options. We have some HDR options, which is auto align and auto tone. I never touch auto tone because I'm in complete control of my exposure and how the tones are in there. Auto align is something you might consider if you're shooting an HDR, if you're attempting to shoot an HDR without a tripod. So I am on a tripod, so I'm going to leave auto align unchecked, and I don't even check auto tone. Deghost amount. So what is deghosting? So if you're out shooting, let's say at a pond, and there's a flagpole with a flag waving in the breeze and some trees, if you shoot over 9 images, you're going to get some movement in those leaves and the flag. Deghosting will try to limit that amount of movement in your image, and there are 3 degrees. There's low, medium, high, depending on the amount of movement in your image. We have none in this image, so I'm going to leave it checked for none, and I'm going to click on merge. Now it's going to create, I have these isolated with a red filter on them. It's going to create a brand new image, bring us back out to my film strip to create this brand new image. I'm simply going to click on this red label so we have just these images to look at. I don't want to make it too confusing. So here is our merged image. Not too impressive yet. This is all about pre-visualizing how we're going to make this image look good with the tools available. All right, so let's take a look at the tools I was talking about. We have our exposure. We can increase the levels up here when we get the nice bright walls. We can decrease that exposure, and look, we're getting all the way to the darkest or the brightest brights. We're getting that blue sky, which is just phenomenal. It's a very extended dynamic range. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to increase my exposure so we get some of those walls back, and decrease my highlights so we get some of that sky back. And we're looking really, really good. I'm going to increase my clarity and my shadows just a bit more. I really, really like this. I also want to go ahead and straighten this image using the lens correction. I'm just going to simply rotate it until that pole right here is nice and straight. I really like that. I'm going to hit constrain the crop to get rid of the white areas around the image. Yes, I like that a lot. I think maybe just a little bit. Yeah, now we're good. Okay, so I really, really like this a lot, but we're going to push it even further using NYX Hdr Efex Pro. Now what this is going to do is going to create that hyper-realism. That's part of my signature style. I like to create all the texture we see here. It's there during the moment of capture, but using this brand of software, I'm able to really pull out those details, accentuate those details. Does it create an unrealistic look? Absolutely. It's a hyper-realistic style that I really enjoy doing and presenting. And it really creates a sense of, I really want to be here in this spot. And when you get there, you can really appreciate your surroundings. So let's take a look at what Hdr Efex Pro 2 is going to do to this image. So this is a flat automatic compression. There are on the left side here a number of presets that Nick has built in for us. Some really, really cool stuff. But one of my favorites to use, especially in this situation, is this dark preset. Now, I use presets as a starting point. I'm going to further process this. I'm going to go ahead and increase my structure. Watch the detail over here. Now, as I'm pointing this out, you're seeing a boatload of sensor dust issues that we'll deal with inside of Lightroom and maybe in Photoshop, but some really nice detail going on and happening in here. I'm not going to mess with too much of the exposure, even though we have to. We'll address those back in Lightroom, but I really wanted to pull out all this detail that you see here using this dark preset. I'm going to click Save. That's going to bring us back into Lightroom, and it's going to bring us back into the film strip mode where we'll see all the images from the shoot, and I'll just isolate that yet again with the red filter there. Okay, so there's our brand new. Wow, I really, really like where this is going. So I'm going to further accentuate this. I'm going to increase my shadows and increase my clarity. Yep, I like this a lot. I'm going to, not my highlights. I'm going to go ahead and increase my exposure just a bit more. So you can see we still have those blue skies and we can still see the green leaves out there. Really, really happy with this. I'm also going to jump down to the effects, pull down a little bit of a vignette, which leads our eye into the image. I'm really, really liking this a whole lot. All right, so now let's address some of these sensor spots. Now, when you do an HDR, it's important to realize you are stacking 9 images, and you're stacking 9 images with sensor dust. And when you stack 9 images with sensor dust, you're getting 9 bits of sensor dust layered over one another. So they tend to be really dark. If you ever want to know exactly where your sensor dust is, do an HDR because you'll see them very clearly. So what I'm going to do, here's a little trick inside of Lightroom. Using the navigator, I'm going to click in the top upper left corner, and I'm going to start systematically using the page down, go through the image in a grid search for sensor dust. And I'm going to remove it when I can. So I'm going to remove this large piece, make sure it pulls from a good location. I'll go right about there. I like that. I'm going to keep going. There's some here. The beauty of this kind of setting is you have a lot of forgiveness with the sensor dust because you can lose a lot of it. Did I just see another piece? Yeah. You can lose a lot of it in the, the cracks and the crevices, and I think I'm done now, except for that really big spot right in the middle there. Oh, there's another one right there. Yep, I like this a whole lot. Very good. Is that? I think that might not be a piece of sensor dust. That might be just the wall itself, but I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Very good. Now, this big piece right there, I'm going to have to get rid of that in Photoshop, only because we're running over 2 edges. We're running over this scar in the wall here and this part of the molding. So I want to address that in Photoshop. So I'm going to right-click, export or edit in. There we go. Edit in Photoshop, and I'm going to edit a copy. I always want to work on a copy when we're working on these sort of files. This is a TIFF now that we're working on. This will take, depending on your processor, just a little bit of time to bring in because it's setting up to not only come into Photoshop, but to also bring it back into Lightroom. Now, how do we address this piece right here? All right, so I want to get rid of this piece of dust here. I'm going to zoom in on the area using the Control and the plus key. And I think what I'm going to do here is fudge it this way. I'm going to copy this portion of the molding to its own layer. So we'll see that it's just floating out there. I'm going to then drag it over the space that I want to conceal that piece of sensor dust. Then taking my eraser tool, I'm just going to erase some of those hard edges to help better sell the effect here. Okay, very good. Very good. Okay, so we're good here. A little bit too much there. You know what? I'm going to leave that just like that, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to flatten that, and then I'm going to grab this edge of this scar. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that to its own layer, edit, transform, flip it horizontally, so we should see it do that, drag this to here, reposition it, and there are probably 12 different ways to do this inside of Photoshop, but this is the way I'm going to do it right here. Okay, I like that very much. Now I'm going to take that same eraser tool and get rid of these hard edges. We'll just we'll leave that bottom part for now. We'll get rid of this. That looks pretty darn good. And I'm going to flatten those. Then I'm going to jump over to my clone tool and sample and continually sample so you don't create a pattern. I'm going to go ahead and extend this little crack here. And I think that does it pretty well. Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm going to hit save and close this out. And then when I open, we should have a dust-free. I just noticed this one down here too. I'll get rid of this one. And again, because we're working on such a crazy looking wall, we have a lot of forgiveness in where we draw our pixels from. That looks phenomenal. I really like this. I don't see any more dust. So we could keep going. We could keep cooking it, but I find maybe walk away from it for a little bit, then come back and we can further accentuate it. We can warm it up just a bit or cool it down. Oh, I like it cool. Cool it down just a bit. I like that a lot. And I think for the purposes of this tutorial, we are done. So we took an image, 9 exposures. We created a super HDR image. We then saturated it and hyper realized it inside of Nik software, and then we used Photoshop to get rid of some of the harder edged problems in there, and we created, I think, a very effective image, an image that would compel people to really want to visit this place should they want to. So I hope you guys enjoyed this look at my process. It's a different process. So it doesn't work for every image. It shouldn't work for every image. Every image is its own piece of art. And this is how this one was created. So I hope you guys enjoyed this look. Do check me out at paulmichaelkane.com. You can check out Lightbox photography cards at lightboxphotocards.com. We are currently at, I think, 7 days and a few hours to the end of the campaign for the macro edition. Do check that out on Kickstarter. And thank you, as always, for the support, the kind words, and for watching. You guys take care.